Hi, and welcome to part 11 of Automating Active Directory with PowerShell tutorial series. So far in this series, we've managed to create our employees, sync our employees. So the only thing left to really do is to remove any employees that might have quit or got fired. So the first thing that we want to do in this and I prefer to do it this way, is always to disable the users for a certain amount of days and then delete them. So this is what this function is going to do. We're going to go over all the different steps that we need to do. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So we already know that our user sync data is what's holding our employees that have quit. So if we just run what we have right now, just so everything is there, perfect. And we look at our user sync data, right now we don't have anyone that's removed. So let's go ahead and let's actually just completely remove this column here of Janie Malone. And what I'm actually going to do before I do that here, I'm just going to take a backup of the file and I am going to remove Janie Malone and let's save that. So what we should have now is we should actually have Janie Malone in our removed area. So let's just go make sure that we see. So we do see here Janie Malone, or Malone J, in Dubai that needs to be removed. So let's go ahead and let's start here. So I'm going to write it outside of a function first in this case, and then we're going to put it into a function. Um, so let's go ahead and let's just grab the removed users here. So that's going to be equal to user sync data dot removed. So if we do that here and we check our removed users, we will see Janie Malone. So that's perfect. So we already got one step basically kind of done here. So let's do like what we've done for the last few times here. We're going to do a for each removed user in removed users. And then we are going to do a write verbose. And then we are just going to do fetching data for removed user dot. Wonder if I bring in the name here. Not 100% positive what variables I'm bringing in. So let's just take a look to see what we have here. Yeah, so we do have names. So what we're going to want to do, the first step, and I'm just going to do a write host here for now. We're going to change this to write verbose when we put it into our function, just so we can actually see here what's going on. Perfect. So what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to grab that user just so we have that user to work with, that Active Directory object. So let's go ahead and let's create a variable called ADUser, and we're going to do a get ADUser on the removed user, and we are going to bring in all the properties, and the server is going to be in user sync data dot domain. Perfect. So that should work. So that should get us the user here. So if we look at this, we have our Janie Malone user and all the information for it. We're going to need all the information, and we're going to see why in just a moment. And the main reason why I'm just going to go over this right now, just so I can explain it with like a visual GUI here. There's a setting in the account tab called account expires, and we can set a date here. Now, normally you don't use this to like set a date to delete the account, but instead of having a database or a file that we store a date that a user needs to be deleted on, I use the account expires in this case, because what we're going to do is we're going to be disabling the account. And then when we disable the account, so if it's enabled, we're going to disable it. And at the same time that we disable it, we're going to be setting the account expires X amount of days from today. And then this way, every time that the script runs, we can say that, okay, if the user's already disabled, let's check the account expires date. If it's expired, then we could just delete the account because we've already held it for that retention period. So that's what we're going to do. You could use like a custom field because there are custom fields in Active Directory, but this one is just, it's handy. It's already a date field. And most of the time, people don't really use it. And honestly, it's called account expires. So it just makes sense logically to use that field this way. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see if the AD user is disabled. So that we can do if AD user dot enabled equals true. So if it's not disabled, then we disable it. So this is what we're going to do here. We're going to do a, let's just do a write host just to see what we're doing. Disable user, and then we're just going to do AD user dot name. We're just going to put disabling AD user dot name. And then what we're going to do to disable a user, we're going to do set AD user. Identity is going to be AD user. And then we're going to do set the enabled to false. And then what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to specify the server user sync data.domain. And we're just going to want to make sure that the confirm is set to false. This way there is no prompt. All right, so we're disabling the user, but we're not setting that account expires. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can find that property here. Oftentimes when you have all these other options here, so let me just remove these options here. So we have the account expiration date. So let's go ahead and let's set that here to, we're going to set that to the commandlet of get date. And then outside of the parentheses, we can do what's called add days. And then here we can add the days. So let's go ahead and let's actually put a variable in here. And then we're going to do keep disabled for days. So this is going to be our variable here. So we have set AD user, identity AD user. Enabled is going to be set to false. The account expiration date is going to be set to today's date. And add the days that is stored in the variable keep disabled for days. And then we have our server and we have our confirm false. So all we need to do is create this variable here is keep for disabled 4 days. And we're going to set that to 7 days here. So let's just run all of these here just so we get that variable. All right, so let's see what this does right now. All right, so we do see that we did get into the loop and we disabled user Janie Malone. So if we go into the user here, let's just refresh it. So we see that it is disabled. And we actually do see that we have account expires at the end of Friday, June 25th, which is 7 days from today. So that's perfect. So everything is working great. So now all we need to do is do the check for if it's already disabled and if the date is lesser than today. So let's go ahead and let's code that here in the else statement. So let's go ahead and so we already know that the account is going to be disabled at this point. So we're going to add an if statement in here. If AD user dot account expiration date is less than, and then we're going to do get date. Perfect. So this is basically saying if the AD user account expiration date is less than today's date, so basically if the account expired yesterday or the account expired before yesterday, as long as it doesn't expire today, because what I always like to do is I always like to make sure that doesn't expire on that day, always expire the day like after, because the field is set to like end of day. So I like to use the less than. You could use the less than or equals, but at that point you don't really get 7 days. Potentially you might only really get like 6 full business days. So let's just keep it at the less than. But again, it's completely up to you, and you don't need to make it for 7. You can make it for 1, 2. You can make it for 100 days. It's really completely up to you. So what we're going to want to do here is if it's less than the date, we're going to do a write host. And then we're going to do deleting account AD user dot name. And then how we delete an account here is just going to be remove AD user. Identity is going to be AD user. Server is going to be user sync dot domain. And we have our confirm is false. Perfect. And then we have our else statement. Just for us here, just to see what's kind of going on, we're just going to do this. And like I said, we're going to be changing all these write hosts to write verbose. This way it's not always outputting, but we can use the dash verbose parameter to kind of do some debugging to see where our code is going into. So let's just do account AD user dot name is still within the retention period. Perfect. So that should be good. So if we go ahead and run this right now, we should get that it's still within the retention period because our account only expires on June 25th. So let's go ahead and let's actually change that here to June 18th. And now if we run this here, we get deleting account for Malone J. And now if we go and refresh here, Malone J is gone. So she is deleted, which is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So now that this function clearly works, all we need to do now is create the actual function and copy that code into it. So let's create a function here called remove users, open and close curly brackets, do our commandlet binding, our parameters here, and let's put our parameters here. So we already know that we're going to have to take in the user sync object, which is a hash table, user sync data. And we know we're going to have to take in, I don't like to put this mandatory, but we can do a parameter for an int, and this is going to be the keep disabled for days, and we're going to set this to a default of 7. So if no one supplies a parameter for it, it's going to be a default of 7 days, which is fine. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do a try catch here, just to make sure that we catch any errors that might happen. And we will do our typical here, write error message dot I believe it was dot exception dot message here. I thought I was doing it backwards, and I was. All right, so now that we have our try catch here, let's go ahead and let's paste this function. And that should be good. Perfect. So it's all properly tabbed in here. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to change these to right verbose. Perfect. And let's call this remove users, user sync data, user sync data. All right, and then if we do a verbose, okay, perfect. So let's go ahead, and now that we have that here, let's go ahead and let's bring back Janie Malone as an employee. And let's this time delete Ethel Potter. And let's go ahead and let's change the name of Frederick Tucker to Frederick Smith. So that should have quite a few changes here. So, and actually for the fun of it, let's actually change Frederick Smith to Dubai as well. So we have our old copy here so we can know what the old values are so we can compare them. And let's go ahead and let's check this out here. All right, so we do see that we disabled Potter E, which is perfect. We do see Frederick Smith, which is perfect because that's the new name. Currently, it's Tucker F in New York, needs to be in Dubai, so OU needs to be changed and username needs to be changed. So it did see that it needed a username change. So let's go ahead and let's check in Dubai here. All right, so we have our Malone J here in Dubai, which is perfect. So she got recreated with the username Malone J, which is awesome. And we got our Smith F, which is Frederick Smith in Dubai, and we see that he's the CEO in Dubai. He obviously got moved into Dubai, so that is perfect. So everything is working great. So that is basically it for this script here. So I will be posting this to my GitHub. I'm going to be posting one last video of just a little recap of everything we did. And this is going to be, like I said, posted to my GitHub here with all the functions. I'm going to try to add some comments to these before I put it into the GitHub. But I'm pretty sure that even with these videos, if you take the code from the GitHub, watch these videos, you will have a great understanding of what's going on. I usually add a lot of comments into the code. But for these videos, obviously, I was just kind of coding along with you guys and saying everything out loud. So that's the reason for not very much commenting here. But you can definitely add a lot of comments yourself just so you can really grasp what's going on. If you can describe it in the comments yourself, then you obviously understand what the code is doing. But this code takes in a CSV file, checks, compares the data, will create any users, syncs the existing users, makes any changes if it needs to make changes, and then removes the deleted users. So that's pretty much it. I will see you on the next video. Make sure that you like and subscribe. There will be tons more tutorials coming. I'm thinking about starting a Python tutorial next. Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm going to think about doing a little bit of Python basics at first, and then maybe do a little bit of a dive into Flask and Django. But before I do the Django and Flask, I'm going to cover the basics of Python and the basics of HTML and CSS maybe. But let me know if you guys have anything specific that you guys want to learn. If it's something about PowerShell or something, leave it in the comments and I will be sure to make that video. I will see you on the next video and have a great day.